It is Monday morning of the last week of the campaign. So where is anybody this morning but here with Jenni Byrne and Scott Reid on the curse of politics? Hey. How are you? I missed you this weekend. Yeah, good to see you. Nick Taylor-Vasey, how are you, man?
Good. I got to where I am right now through a bit of a lightning storm last night and some dense fog somewhere around Milton.
It's fog.
John Carpenter.
Feels good to
Where
be.
are you going, Nick?
Any guesses?
Where are you? Where to play?
Any guesses where I'm west of Milton. I'm in a place called Kitchener, Ontario.
Oh, wow. Well,
Yeah,
that's a battleground.
Yeah, Kitchener Center is one heck of an interesting little race right now. Talking to a couple of candidates today who would like to replace a Liberal who's no longer anywhere near the top of the ballot, although still on the ballot, notably.
Yeah, it was a unique riding where the Greens finished second in the last general.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's the same candidate.
Yeah, the former Liberal MPP endorsed the Green candidate on the weekend.
Yeah, exactly. Everything's interesting. So yeah, I'm talking to Bisan Zubi, the NTP candidate, and Mike Morris, the aforementioned Green, and Playbook readers can read all about it tomorrow morning, when I'll still be in Kitchener. Can't wait.
Excellent. Double dosing on Kitchener.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, you don't drive through a lightning storm and then just leave. You know, it's meant to be. It felt a bit cosmic.
Make sure you have some sausage. So, where's everybody today? What's happening? How are they leading off the week? Who's in Hamilton, for one thing?
Interestingly, nobody. Although me in a couple of days. Trudeau is in Vancouver after swinging through the 905 over the weekend, and Quebec over the weekend. Aaron O'Toole is not in Vancouver. He is in Carp, which when I saw the itinerary was hoping he'd be at the Diefenbunker because that's, I think, the best museum in town, but he is not. And he's with the local candidate in Connecticut Carleton, which is a riding that the Conservatives would like to pick up from the Liberals, who don't have an incumbent. Karen McCrimmon not running again. Jagmeet Singh is in Northwestern Ontario. He's in Kenora for the day. The Kenora riding anyway. He's in all kinds of places because it's a pretty big riding up there. Conservative riding. Yeah. Really, really young Conservative MP, a rookie MP, Eric Melillo. He was 21 when he was elected, and the NDP doesn't care. They want it. So they're going to go there and take it if they can. And Annamie Paul is not in Toronto Centre. She's not in Ottawa. She's not in Gatineau. She is flying to Prince Edward Island.
Oh.
So there you go.
Right over Fredericton.
She can't be flying. Because I heard her on television the other day saying that it's unethical to get in a plane because of the carbon footprint that's caused, and that's why she was traveling by rickshaw or something the other day. So I am astonished to hear that.
Actually, I should apply a pre-correction. There's a chance she's not flying. She's in Prince Edward Island. She was in Toronto. I guess there's a chance
she could have swum.
What, like teleported or something?
I don't want to be caught making it.
Come on, carbon offset credits. Jesus, cut her some slack. Carbon offset credits.
I assume. Yeah.
All right. Hey, Nick, I want you to stick around for a minute.
Sure.
Because I know you don't listen to the show. And you asked us a question for the playbook last night.
Can I interrupt and tell you that in the middle of the lightning storm, I was catching up on the Friday episode? I listened to this damn show. I just want that to be on the record.
Two events are related. We often spark meteorological events.
You asked us a question about the difficulty of running the election from the plane. And I thought maybe Jenny could just give us a quick little tutorial on when you're the campaign manager sitting in the headquarters, what are all of the inputs you have? What are all the metrics you're looking at to try to determine resource allocation, tour location, all these kinds of questions?
Well,
and it all builds to why you can't do it from the plane.
Yeah. So at this point of the campaign, you're trying to figure out where you're putting your precious resources. including what money you have left over and what body resources you have left over. And so that's done by a whole host of factors. You've got the polling, which you're getting in daily. I've said before, we did a lot of regional and riding by riding polls at this point. And you're also looking at, you're talking to people on the ground, you're talking to candidates, your regional organizers to kind of get a sense as to where people are at with their get out the vote plan. And also you have, for us, I had a data guy, and every morning I would come in before a morning meeting and I would have the updated numbers as to how many identified supporters we had, how many undecideds, how many unknowns, how many non-supporters we had. And at this point, you're also looking at how many people have voted in a riding. And so I would come in and look at that around 6:37 a.m. We'd have our morning calls, and then me and the data guy would sit together and methodically go over riding by riding to decide whether, we were going to, shit can one riding to move resources around and what to do otherwise. So it's extremely difficult to be able to do that from the plane.
Yeah. And this is a big weekend in the campaigns. This is something that is subterranean that nobody really knows about. But I was in McCord Travel this weekend because that he lets me record the Through the Looking Glass focus group out of his office. And so I was in McCord Travel this weekend, and he was extraordinarily busy. And he was extraordinarily busy, Jenny, because
they send all the campaign managers send in all the bodies out to the fields. So you're keeping skeleton staff. So at this point, any part of your ground operations, your target seats, they're already out. They've been dispatched. Your candidate support, which is incoming inquiries from campaigns, they're pretty much everyone is out, but maybe one or two. And you're starting to move out the war room people, like the comms people. You're starting to move out the scripting people. Like as the campaign kind of winds down on a daily basis, you're assigning people where they're going to go and spend the rest of the campaign. By election day, you literally have like a skeleton staff. You have your legal counsel, you have your Elections Canada people, you have your data person, and then you probably have 2 comms per people. You need someone French, someone English, and that's pretty much it. It's a very desolate place. The last week, especially the last week.
It's a creepy, lonely place to be. HQ in the last week,
for sure. And Nick, I know you've got a continental breakfast buffet to get to, but let me just keep you for 1 second longer. And I'll add the other side of that coin. And because I was usually on the plane, and I'll just emphasize, as much as you think you can keep your head about you and be objective from the plane, you can't. And the reason you can't is twofold. One end of your occupation is the leader or prime minister, who is going to, by definition, absorb so much of your oxygen. And the other end, you've got a bunch of media traveling with you, and they create these 2 warping distortion fields that affect everything you think. And you can't be saying to yourself, on balance, this is the relative priority I need to place on North Vancouver, when a binder is flying by your head as the prime minister screams, "I wouldn't wipe Feshuk's ass with this trash you've given me to read." And it's just not possible.
There you go. Full value for the playbook today.
My education continues. Much appreciated.
Yeah. You look really grateful.
Yeah, you look bad. Thanks, man. All right, go get your English breakfast.
Yeah.
I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Yeah, see you, man.
Bye.
Thanks. Well, that was fun.
Well, for us. Not too much for Nick.
Well,
he's like, I got scripture to read. Move it along.
We've been talking the last little while about perception versus reality. What we think versus what actually is. So here's a good one. Perception. Kale, a popular member of the cabbage family, is good tasting and good for you. The reality, kale is inedible and quite possibly evil. If you manage to choke it down, be prepared for possible bloating and taste bud anger management. Most of us think of our presenting sponsor TELUS as a Canadian telco, but the reality is TELUS is a technology company that's worldwide in scope, with social purpose at the core of what they do. So let me tell you about TELUS International, which went public earlier this year. TELUS International uses applied digital technology, including artificial intelligence and machine learning, to help businesses all over the world, including many in Canada, to better connect with their customers and operate far more efficiently. That leads to growth on both the top and bottom lines. Why is this important now? Well, like you might expect, COVID provides some context. Digital adoption has accelerated by 7 years over the course of the pandemic. I'm betting that most of you are living that reality right now in how you work, what you buy, and how you connect. Which means these innovative, technology-driven solutions developed by TELUS in Canada are more important than ever. Sure, TELUS could spend their money on sports franchises and media properties like their competitors, but they don't. Instead, TELUS would rather invest in industries like healthcare, agriculture, and so many more to make people's lives better. Go to TELUS.com to learn more. You want it?
I want it.
Please.
You want it? All right, so let's recap.
Okay.
Let's recap, because, a funny thing happened on the way to the forum. So, when this campaign started, the day it was called, EKOS said it was 35 Liberal, 30 Conservative, 17 NDP. Today they say it is 32 Conservative, 30 Liberal, 20 NDP. Now let's look at Ontario.
What about the other parties?
Oh, the other parties. I know. 7% People's Party.
Okay, that's what I'm most curious about.
4% Green, 6% Bloc, and we'll get to that in a second. So, Ontario. When the campaign was called, EKOS says it was 45 Liberal, 33 Conservative, 14 NDP. Today, EKOS says it is 34 Liberal, 34 Conservative, 19 NDP, 9 People's Party. So People's Party's gone from 5 to 9. NDP have gone from 14 to 19. Conservatives have gone from 33 to 34. Liberals have gone from 45 to 34.
Wow.
That's a worrying number. As you guys know, and we had talked about this on the weekend, I was scared. I thought the debate was awful. And my fear was not only was it awful, but Trudeau was awful in it. And I was afraid that it would have a bite. I don't know if that's what this is, but that's a narrowing, a significant narrowing in Ontario to the Liberals' disadvantage.
From a week ago, it was 39, 34, 14. And today it is 34, 34, 19.
Yeah, I'm just worried that English language debate mattered, and I wanted it to not matter.
So that's a straight transfer of 5 points from the Liberals to the NDP in Ontario. Quebec tells quite a different story. Quebec tells a story about politics and events because of all the things that we gamed out of the possible events, factors in the campaign. We did not think about the moderator insulting the province of Quebec in a question in the English language debate.
It's shocking because she was so calm and respectful for the whole debate. It's shocking something like that would happen.
Understand. But we have a surging bloc. We have a surging bloc in Quebec, and as a result, the perfect vote split that the Liberals had a few days ago in Quebec has disappeared or is disappearing. So, when the campaign started, EKOS said Quebec was 32 Liberal, 23 Bloc, 17 NDP, and 16 Conservative. And today, EKOS says it is 31 Liberal, 22 Conservative, 11 NDP, and 27 Bloc. So the Bloc have gone from 18 to 27 in 4 days, according to EKOS's polling. And it appears to be coming from the NDP, who are disappearing They hovered around 18 points in Quebec for the whole campaign. In the last week, they've dropped every day down to 11. Looks like Ruth Ellen Brosseau can go back to Vegas for the last week of the campaign.
Well, that is good news for her, I guess. What about the People's Party in Quebec? You had them tracking quite high a few days ago.
Yeah, People's Party's off of its high of about 12% and is at 8.
So what you're trying to tell us, David, is it appears that the English debate had a huge impact in Ontario and also in Quebec. It looks like it had a bigger effect than the French debate had in Quebec.
French debate doesn't appear to have any impact in Quebec. Or the TVA debate didn't appear.
Thank you, Debate Commission.
Yeah.
Thank you, format. Thank you, moderator. That's great.
So this still though could come down. Like if you're looking at this, so I know there's been a lot of chatter on Twitter that the People's Party is basically, it's don't worry about it. They're not eating into the Conservative vote. So I think that I will give the benefit of the doubt. I think 25%, maybe a combination of disaffected Greens that maybe don't like the vaccine passports, people that never voted, maybe some disaffected Dippers, maybe some disaffected Liberals, who knows? 75% of that vote, though, I truly believe is Conservative vote. And so it's very interesting to look at this. We got 25% of the vote in Quebec in 2006 and we won 10 seats. So it is conceivable that at the, what are we at? Did you say, David?
22%.
22%.
And holding.
We could end up not picking up any seats in Quebec in terms of this election.
Well, it's interesting to watch. I see on Twitter people go on the vaccine issue. How many candidates are vaccinated? What can they do? All this kind of stuff. I see journalists on Twitter going, "What the fuck is wrong with the Conservatives that they can't come up with an answer to this question?" And let's just say to everybody out there that the people running all of these campaigns are smart people who have thought a lot about this, continue to think a lot about this, have access to a lot of information that we don't have access to, and are making decisions for a reason. So the Conservatives are obviously concluding that they have to keep that line of communication open to the People's Party libertarian wing of their own party in order to either not bleed any more to them or to pull some people back. So this is a worst of all worlds. This is a best of bad choices, calculated decision by the Conservatives. It's not a mistake.
I think that's such an important point, David, because people do that. They just go, well, how can people be so stupid? The answer is that people aren't stupid. Yeah, they might make mistakes. We've all made mistakes in campaigns. But they don't do irrational things, right? They do things for a reason, and then maybe they're right or maybe they're wrong. And, I made this point on the weekend saying, O'Toole is scared shitless of the People's Party on this issue. And that's a rational reaction on his part. And you got to pick your poison. You got to say, well, do I take that criticism? Do I see evidence that it's bleeding me more on that side? Or is there a greater threat that if I were to make a big move and say, you know what, I'm putting my foot down, would it swell that People's Party column? And I understand where they're coming from.
Well, they've kind of got the worst of all worlds then in the position, because their position is they really are straddling the line, right? So they're trying to not lose the libertarian base, the people that are going to go to the People's Party. 30% of people do not support a vaccine passport or mandatory vaccines, but yet they actually support a vaccine passport, and so they're kind of in a mushy. They're in this middle position, and Max is already also starting. He had very large events in Alberta this weekend. Continues to be momentum. Other than the Liberals rally last night in Milton at the car, or Oakville at the
drive-in. At the drive-in.
Yeah,
I went to the canteen. I got a corn dog. And voted for
snack box closed in another 5 minutes.
Max is starting to actually go off. Like he's still obviously talking about freedom and vaccine passports, but he's also started to refine his issue on other things. He tweeted it out, and it was part of a speech I had heard on one of the clips on social media on the weekend. Is a vote for O'Toole is a vote for a carbon tax and a weather vane. And so he's going further and further in terms of his messaging. And it was a good line.
It is a good line.
So we'll see where his momentum continues.
I had such an interesting moment in the focus group on Saturday. It's going to be out today. This is a shameless plug for Through the Looking Glass. Focus group will be out later today. But I had such an interesting moment where I asked people in the group whether they knew anybody who was supporting the People's Party. And only one person in the group did. And the other people in the group were like, fuck those people. They're ruining it. They're assholes. They're this, they're that. They're, blah, blah. The one guy that knew them, after everybody had pounded on them, just said, the people I know, they're just people. They're just my neighbors. They're nice people. I like them. They're not monsters. And it was like, they're not human to those of us that don't know anybody like them. But if you do know them, they probably are the people who live just next door who regularly fucking bring in your mail or let your cat out.
Well, that's exactly what they are. They're for the same reason that Trump voters were afraid to say they voted for Trump in exit polls in 2016 because of the reaction that people in your group had to the People's Party. I think there are a lot of people out there that plan to vote for the People's Party, and they're just not saying anything because of the reaction that they might get. But as I said, the groups of people, like the groups of people that you see that Max is speaking to, most of them look very radically normal. They are people that are just they're fed up for one reason or another, and they're looking for an alternative from the mainstream parties.
Well, yeah, for sure.
I
don't have to hate them.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I can understand that, and I don't have to hate them, but I really, really, really dislike their choices. So, I just want to park that thought. I don't want to be like, hey, we're all super relativistic. Every choice is as good as the others. I don't think that. I think they're making bad choices. But, in terms of the last week, I think the interesting thing is, because of the point you're making, Jenny, about where the Conservatives are, we're all making, it does mean that there's an unfettered opportunity for Trudeau to dunk on them, because he can set the bar on vaccinations as high as humanly possible and say, that's the bar I'm going to get over. And O'Toole refuses to do it, and therefore he's not the right person to lead. And I guess the question I wonder is, we have, is that a closeout argument? And I'm not sure it is. I don't know. Can you force people to think, all right, after months and months and months, that's going to be the determining factor of my vote? And I think that's the thing you got to think you got to figure that out if you're the Liberals, because you're 34 in Ontario. You got to figure out what it is that's going to open up that gap again. I would say that when that gap opened up, it was around this issue of vaccines. It started with the protests and vaccines.
It was guns. It opened up after the Tevye debate because of guns. When Trudeau said, it's on page 90 of your platform, was when things changed, and it was Aaron's handling of it. They've been, other than the week on guns where the Liberals actually started to go up, their continued pounding on vaccines has not. This is now what they've gone back to after the last 4 or 5 days, and they're back down in the polls. So I disagree with you, Scott. I think that this is.
I don't think that's not a causal relationship. Surely the debate is why they went down the polls, not that.
No, I think you guys are playing too much. You can believe it's the debate, but the only thing they've been talking about are vaccines. And if you look at it, as I said, 30% of people are against mandatory vaccines and passports in this country. The other 70% all know someone that is hesitant to get a vaccine for a whole host of reasons. Like, people they love aren't getting vaccines. So people pounding on people that other people love is not also a good idea. And if you look at countries, look at the protests in France, in Denmark, thousands and thousands and thousands of people are protesting against vaccine passports. Boris Johnson came out and said the UK is scrapping it. So my point, Scott, is if the Trudeau decides to spend the next week talking about vaccines, I think you're going to see a further tightening, because I don't think it's been a galvanizing issue at all for him during this campaign.
I think you got to raise the stakes.
Just as a piece of evidence on Jenny's part, in the focus group, and I know it's not representative of anything, it's just 10 people, but nonetheless, in the focus group, when people were talking about why they weren't voting for O'Toole, they were not talking about vaccines. They weren't even really talking about the pandemic. I still don't think there's much sense that the government would handle basic pandemic issues differently, no matter who was in charge. But I tested a Liberal anti-gun ad, and it's just gold. It's just gold, right? because it remains an issue that isn't about guns or crime. It's about how do you see the world? And for people that are against guns, urban residents, it's like if you support those things, those pictures of those weapons that the Liberals put up in that ad, you and I don't see the world the same way. It's that kind of issue. And you'd think vaccines would be, but it's not penetrating that way in the way people talk about it.
Well, listen, at the end of the day, you go to what works. I wonder if that tells you that the issue doesn't work, or if it tells you that they've not made it work and they haven't been successful in driving the stakes. And so that people say, okay, I actually have to, I won't get the same thing out of all these parties on this issue. And of course, then there's always the complicating factor for the Liberals of which of these issues might cause people to disapprove of the Conservatives, but don't necessarily cause them to approve of you. Like, how do you make certain that you don't drive votes? You need votes that drive people away from the Conservatives and pinch the NDP. And I think that's the target they've got to hit.
Well, if I were them, whether vaccines isn't an issue or vaccine passports, or whether it is an issue and they just haven't capitalized on it. It's been 5 weeks. They haven't capitalized on it. So if they want to actually try to if they're trying to wedge leading into, we've got one more day of advanced polls, then we're into E-Day, a week from today. If vaccines have not worked, I think it's Einstein's definition of insanity. It's doing the same thing, expecting a different result. I think if the Liberals continue down the road they're going down, then there's going to be less and less likely that they are going to win. If they stay on a track of talking about the pandemic and vaccines, they are handing Erin O'Toole a victory.
Since Confederation, owning a home has been part of the Canadian dream. For most people, that dream is much more than just a monthly mortgage payment. A home is where we create our fondest memories and where we can truly be ourselves. For too many, especially young adults, that reality is out of reach and it's getting worse. The good news is our original sponsor, the Ontario Real Estate Association, or REA for short, has a plan to save the Canadian dream of home ownership. It includes lowering costs for first-time buyers, ending money laundering in the real estate market, and cutting years of red tape that is standing in the way of more affordable homes for families. The OREA plan will lay the foundation for a future where all people can find a place to call home. When we support the dreams of all of us who want to own a home, we're building healthier families, stronger communities, and a safer, more secure future for all. Read their plan at orea.com/affordable homes. So the biggest threat, the bigger problem for the Liberals in Ontario is the NDP rather than the Conservative number, though there's votes to be gotten from both sides. Do you think that the Liberals are best with their guns on the Conservatives this week, or with their guns on the NDP? And is Singh best able to hold off the strategic vote by asserting that the Liberals will govern after the election no matter what happens with the plurality, or by leaving open the option that he might support O'Toole if he has the most seats?
Scott, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I think I'll jump in. I think that Singh would be smarter to say what most people say. I think that's always the best proposition. Like, look at what most people think, and if you tell them that, will you be rewarded? And I think most people still think the Liberals are going to win. And I think, we're talking about factors that affected rise of Liberal vote in Ontario. I think one of the other factors we haven't mentioned is that people started to get a sense that maybe there was momentum behind the Conservatives, and that caused a little bit of a reflex. And I think you've got almost mirror image strategies, therefore, for the Liberals and the NDP. I think the Liberals need people. It's this horrifying knife's edge you got to live on. If you're the Liberals, you want people to start to think like, holy shit, Erin O'Toole could win, and see if that, causes a rebound. And if you're the NDP, I think I'd campaign on, look, we all know the Liberals are going to win. The question is, to how short a leash are we going to put them on? How much are we going to hold them to account? Therefore, you got to vote NDP. And I think that one of the real problems right now that's got to get fixed the next few days for the Liberals is I'm not sure that people. I know anecdote isn't evidence, but people in my own circle, they assume that whatever was happening before is now over and that the Liberals are cruising to a victory. And I think that the Liberals need a little bit more fear in the air in order to procure the election day they want.
Yeah. All right, it's time for curses. Daily curses. Who's got one?
I'll go.
Jenny.
My curse is to Elections Canada. There 1.3 million people voted on Friday, which looks like it's much higher than what the last election is. And so obviously there are lineups at polling stations. But so I voted on Saturday. I went in, out. I was in and out in 7 minutes. And I know that there's probably some lineups that are genuine, but I talked to people that were lined up for, an hour and a half. And it wasn't because it was like packed in the polling station. It's because certain returning officers and DROs, deputy returning officers, were allowing like one person in or one household to vote, even though it was in like a large community center that like all the actual polls. Because in a place, you could have 10 polls in one location. And so Elections Canada's got to kind of get their act together. There are some people, like I spoke to people that just said, screw it, I'm not going to vote. And so
turnout. You think it is going to affect turnout?
I think it could
affect turnout.
I think it could affect turnout if people have to stand in line for an hour and a half to be able to vote. There's not much momentum. I think the only momentum that anyone has right now is the People's Party. I think Max's people might stand in line for an hour and a half, but I don't think any of the other people's parties for whatever and other people's parties would probably do that. So I think Elections Canada's got to kind of figure out a way that's you can keep the social distancing and the safeness, but you've actually got to make it so people it's as convenient for people to vote as possible.
Thank you, Jenny. Scott, you got a curse?
My curse is to the Liberal campaign. It picks up directly on what we've been talking about already. I'm going to give you a little sermon from Reverend Reid here, a little truth track. I don't know, folks in the Liberal campaign. Here's what people say about you. I'm going to just lean in close. I'm going to tell you the truth about what people say about you. They don't know. Maybe they don't say it to your face. What they say about you is this. They say you guys do data well. They say you guys have really modernized the party. You know how to use data in order to target, how to communicate, how to get precise messages out to people. And they say you don't do big message and big narrative well. I think you've proven with the way this campaign launched, the second thing is true. Now it's time to prove that the first thing is true. And that means using the data to tell you what is going to unlock anxiety on the part of NDP Liberal switchers, right? Fortitude and urgency on the part of Liberal voters, and making those independent voters say, I can't take a gamble on O'Toole. It may be one message. It may be a series of messages. It may be cut across demos. It may be cut across regions. I don't know. But you guys are supposed to know, because according to the truth track on the Liberals, the Trudeau Liberals, you know your data. So this is the week for you to flex your muscles and show that's true.
All right. My curse goes out to the polling industry, which is, I'm begging you, in the next few days, would somebody do a 500 or more sample of British Columbia and tell us what the fuck is going on in British Columbia? This race is close enough that it could easily come down to the BC results to determine who has a plurality. And I don't think that anybody's given us any insight into what's going on out there other than the fact that it is a three-way fight. And we need more data. We need to know what's going on in the Lower Mainland versus the rest of the province, etc. Somebody give us that info. The parties have it, and I'm jealous. So,
David, could you
all
also,
right, everybody.
Could you also throw in that maybe they should all stay off Twitter for the last week of the campaign?
Oh no!
Well, I certainly can. I think we should put a curfew on the pollsters.
I liked all that. I like a little fireworks. A little brown, liquid-fueled fireworks.
All right, everybody. Thank you for listening. Thank you to our presenting sponsor, TELUS, and to the Ontario Real Estate Association for their support. Thank you to EKOS Frank Graves for their data, which drives our show every day. Thank you to Nick Taylor-Vasey and Politico. Thanks, Politico, for putting Nick on the road. He needed it. And we will be back tomorrow, where we'll talk about where do the Conservatives get the 5 points in Ontario that would put them over the top. Come back and see us tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. Curse of Politics. Till then.